I'm Mark Villasana, owner of Northwest Insurance Agency and proud SMU alumni. Insurance rates right now are awful. You know it and I know it. But give me a call and let's take a look at your current policy and see if there's anywhere I can save you some money. My phone number is 214-352-5656, or you can email me at markv@nwagencies.com, or just give me a call to talk SMU athletics. Pony up.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody. Thanks for joining us on this Friday. So we get a mailbag edition to you guys. We're presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency, as you heard in the open there. Appreciate Mark Villasana and all he does for our SMU fans and subscribers to ontheponyexpress.com. SMU football is hitting a little bit of a break after Saturday's practice during spring ball. Rhett Lashley going to give them some time to get in the weight room, kind of recuperate a little bit. They had a really physical practice on Friday that we were out there for. Saturday is going to be busy with recruits, tons of people from what I heard that are going to be out at practice. And we'll have it all covered for you at ontheponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1 for your first week. We've had a bunch of people sign up. I dropped my class prediction piece on the website, so getting a good feel, I think at least, for how the 2026 recruiting class is shaping up, just as official visits really are a month away, that first weekend in May, a big one for SMU. So we will get to your mailbag questions. Do want to remind you guys that we're also presented by our friends at the Thomas Auto Group. Learn more about the Thomas Promise by heading up 75 to McKinney to check out their Ford, Subaru, Volkswagen dealerships and get employee pricing on new and pre-owned vehicles from the Thomas Auto Group.
At Thomas Auto Group, the Thomas Promise includes the low price promise,
the pre-owned promise,
and the 72-hour exchange promise.
And finally, the 100% customer satisfaction promise. So shop Thomas Auto Group today, home of the Thomas Promise.
That's right. And we'll jump right into the mailbag questions with CG26. 1 week into spring practice, who or what has been the biggest surprise, positive or negative? This is a really good question. I would say the biggest surprise, I'll give you one positive, one negative. I would say the biggest surprise positively is how good Chris Johnson Jr. and Derek McFall have looked at running back. Like when SMU signed Derek McFall from Tyler High School, I mean, I was a big fan, pushed for him to be a 4-star prospect on 3. I just felt like he could be, I mean, this was before Brashard Smith when he was obviously signed by SMU, so we didn't have necessarily the comp or what he could maybe do, but he played all over for Tyler, did everything for them. And so he really showed flashes of that in the fall, but you didn't necessarily know how an offseason would go and would he be ready. I think Derek McFall's ready to step into the limelight and has done a bunch of really impressive things during spring ball. And the same goes for Chris Johnson Jr. You know, I think he doesn't have that side-to-side agility that Brashard Smith has, but he's a really, really good kid who is still young, still developing, can absolutely be a home run hitter. Now, with both of those guys, we'll see how their pass protection improves over the course of the spring and into fall and all that, as they will ultimately see a bigger role in that and a reliance on them to do that from time to time. I will say last year, and this is where we could go off at a complete tangent on the offensive line piece, but SMU's offensive line, I think, was a little bit better in pass pro than people give it credit for because of some early season struggles. And then you have the Clemson, Penn State games that they, obviously faced some upper echelon talent. But Rhett Lashley, at least from my naked eye, kind of has like a propensity to get backs out of the backfield, to obviously get the tight end involved in the passing game. Like they get left in that 5-man protection a lot. So in today's day and age of college football with impressive pass rushers, athletes are great on the defensive line. I just felt like the offensive line was a little bit better last year. But all that to say, yes, there will still be some reliance on those running backs to do pass pro, but they do get those guys who are both capable of catching the football out of the backfield. So that's not, I guess my biggest surprise. Like I really didn't think that they would necessarily look this good together. Like maybe Derek McFall would have emerged, maybe Chris Johnson would flash, one of those two, but they've both looked really good. And then the negative one I would say is the interior of the defensive line. I still think needs a little bit more juice to it. And this is probably because Jonathan Jefferson has not been out there due to injury. So keep that in mind. SMU has Terry Webb and Jeffrey Emba kind of holding it down and playing a lion's share of snaps. And then you have Eric Taylor, you have Kevin Allen, you have Blake Burris, you have missing one maybe. DeMarge Lewis has been hurt, which is kind of what he's been his entire career, is hurt. And then Mike Johan Sanjo and Jiki has been out there and actually been doing some good things from what I've seen. But so you have a defensive line that I just don't think the guys who are right now running with the backups have been like at a really high level. Like we haven't seen somebody who didn't have a big role at another school, but has come in and kind of been like a Jonathan Jefferson where he got the opportunity at SMU and Tibbs has gotten him and things like that. We haven't seen somebody like that emerge. Like Jonathan Jefferson, when he got here, very quickly you could tell he was going to start and be a player for SMU. So that's something where I think they will probably try and address in the spring transfer portal window, is maybe find one more defensive tackle like they did with Jared Harrison Hunt. But that's probably the biggest surprise negative. And even day one, like Eric Taylor was getting a lot of praise from Calvin Thibodeau. And obviously you had Jonathan Jefferson out there those first couple days. But I think he's maybe since hit just a little bit of a wall. So this summer will be big for Eric Taylor. Good segue, I guess. Current wish list from the spring transfer portal to get back to Charlotte in December. I would say they need to probably get maybe another linebacker, maybe, and then another defensive tackle to get back to Charlotte. I think they'll need another running back, but I think most likely it's probably going to be a depth piece or like just a contributor. I don't think they're going to go out and try to take off Derek McFall when he's worked his tail off. He looks the part, does all these things. Chris Johnson Jr. has come in and done everything they've asked. You have Jermico Green coming in. I don't think they're going to try to mess with what they have because remember, obviously, Brashard Smith was not Brashard Smith when he got here. So it's easy to look back and say, well, SMU has to go find Brashard Smith. Well, it's easier said than done. But I would say that they'll go out and try to find a running back, but I don't think it's going to be something that they spend on. I do think they're going to have to, once again, retain guys. That's the two transfer portal window world we live in. I mean, it's unfortunate, but they're going to have to retain some of their guys. I would say those three positions, D tackle, maybe a linebacker, and then running back are key for improving to get back to Charlotte. Dallas Mustang 11 asks, what are your way too early expectations for next year's men's basketball team? So this is really easy for me to answer because the expectations that I have is that they get to the NCAA tournament. And I think it's also easy to say that the ACC is going to double down a little bit. Duke's going to be Duke. North Carolina is trying to get back to North Carolina, not fighting for their life to get in the NCAA tournament. NC State is going to be a team like the Will Wade. I mean, he just gets talent. So like they're going to have to contend with that. And then you're going to have, some other teams that certainly try to improve. I'm trying to think of off the top of my head. Louisville once again be good, I'd imagine. But my expectations for SMU are to get to the tournament. So it doesn't matter what the ACC does. It doesn't matter if Will Wade goes out and does Will Wade things, or if Louisville goes out and replicates the success that they had in year one, or if NC State gets back to rolling and playing at a higher level. All of those things can't impact the expectations that I would have for SMU, that after tying for fourth in the regular season in year one, and if you do, at least as we sit here at 4:15 on Friday, as I'm recording this, and sorry to everybody who wanted it for the drive home, but the day kind of got a little wild. But you have a team that right now looks like it's going to get Boopy Miller, Samet Yigitolu, BJ Edwards back. if you've been watching on ESPN2, you've seen some of the talent that SMU has coming in, and Jermaine O'Neal Jr., Jaden Toombs, Nigel Walls has gotten a shout out recently, and they have signed BJ Davis-Ray, and then they have Nana Owusu Anane coming in from Brown, who could be a little bit more rugged rebounder, has some of the same shooting metrics that Matt Cross did have coming in. So they like him a lot, but you have to find another probably pair of really good pieces. Taylor Bowen ends up going to Alabama. There was another one, Terrence Brown, committed to Utah. There's been kind of a run on basketball transfer portal players committing, and that's because some of these players are trying to get in because there's some sort of deadline on NIL, like kind of the like front loading piece. I guess there's a little bit of a deadline coming up, like with your ability to do that. Ross Dellinger wrote a piece on it. I kind of glanced at it. It's been a busy day, but that was kind of the general takeaway. Yeah, Monday deadline, sign or be potentially subject to being more become subject to a more rigid new enforcement entity that will prohibit booster collective pay. So SMU is among the teams that are trying to get that into place. Now, SMU also has plenty of money in a sense that I think they're going to be able to find ways to make this work overall. And if the deals are paid out by July 1, they are not subject to the new enforcement. Deals signed after the settlement is approved are subject to both revenue share cap and enforcement clearinghouse. So that's because we're finding out on Monday about the settlement. So there you kind of go. That's why you're seeing a run on commitments. And SMU certainly has some guys that they're still, trying to hear from. From what I understand, they hosted Taylor Bowen last weekend. Of course, he ends up going to Alabama. And then they had Terrence Brown, but they also are looking at Lamar Wilkerson. They had Jason Pierre on campus, who is one of the top scorers in the entire country. Maybe not Jaron Pierre on campus, who's one of those top scorers in the entire country. So keep an eye on him. I mean, that's one to watch. We'll see what happens. But regardless of what and who they get and how they get them, I mean, those are my expectations for SMU to make the NCAA tournament. And it doesn't have to be a high seed. It doesn't have to be a double bye in the ACC tournament. It has to be just make the tournament. So that's what I want to see. Andy Enfield's a builder. From what we're seeing and some of the freshmen that are coming in, I think they're going to kind of upgrade. I think you have a chance to see like a Tibet Gorner get replaced in the lineup pretty well. I think you're going to see an AJ George on the roster be replaced by like a Chance Puryear maybe, who develops a little bit. You're going to see Jarrell Colbert, who's out the door, be replaced by Jaden Toombs and Nigel Walls, who both really have a lot of upside and different skill sets that, if they do acclimate well, could be, solid freshman players. Ben Moore, Sterling Brown, those guys that came in and impressed, still hit a touch of a freshman wall, were really, really good. But you need that toughness right away. And I think they kind of have that with guys like Jermaine O'Neal Jr. coming in. So I like that overall. Before I get to G. Newcomb's question, I do want to remind you guys that we're also presented by our friends at Rusty Taco. Guys, please make sure you help me out and go check out the Greenville location and try the corn fritters. Use the code Pony Express at the register, or order online or delivery or pickup at rustytaco.com and try out the corn fritters. They come free with any order with code Pony Express. So check that out. Rusty Taco is a great friend to us. We appreciate what they're doing and love the new menu. Can't wait for the weather to get done being this kind of nasty rain. Maybe Hayden Howerton and I will go sit out there and we'll record our podcast from Rusty on Saturday. But do want to remind you guys to check out our friends at Rusty Taco and support them because they're supporting us. So, all right, we go back to the mailbag. G. Newcomb any updates on the 2026 recruiting front? Who would you view as the most important targets in the class? So I'll kind of give you guys my most important offensive skill, defensive line, and then offensive lineman. And if you're not at ontheponyexpress.com, which obviously G Newcomb is, he submitted his question on the mailbag question thread. We just dropped the class prediction piece. We had an update on a bunch of players that were on campus over the last week or so. It's really been an impressive group that's been on campus a lot. We've also gotten a good feel for where SMU is because we've seen some guys pop up on campus, and that's made me feel better about certain recruitments. Like there were a couple guys that I was kind of on the fence with in terms of including or not including, and then I either saw them at practice or was able to just kind of get a feel for them because they were there, and that's important. And so to kind of give you an update on the recruiting front, SMU right now is sitting here with 4 commitments in the class. They've got 2 4-stars and 2 3-stars in Christian Rhodes, 4-star running back, 4-star wide receiver Xavier Barnett, and then 3-star defensive lineman Yaya God and 3-star quarterback Cole Leinert. Cole Leinert and Christian Rhodes were on campus last weekend. Yaya God comes through. I think he might be in this weekend. So we'll check on that. But I think he tweeted something that he gets back here soon. And then Xavier Barnett, we'll see when he pops in. But they have a really good group to start. Obviously, they're shooting for a large, I would say, high school class once again. I think that's where they want to be. I think you can see the talent level that they can go and get. They can sign 25 players a year if they want to from the high school ranks and be pretty safe doing that. And you're entering this time of year where a month from now, official visits are happening. SMU has spring ball through the 25th. And then during that time, they'll have some visitors. They'll assess where their roster is. They'll plan their portal attack plan. And they'll be able to kind of figure out what they want to do from a class standpoint with that 2026 group. They'll have a better feel about the exact size that they want it at, and some of the guys that, whether maybe they have official visits scheduled or not, is something to keep an eye on as well, because if they maybe didn't come through in the spring and they've had an official, the staff might be like, okay, well, thanks. Let's say they're in Texas. Thanks for making the time to come see us. Why, how interested are you actually if you're not coming through to see spring ball? So it's about to get crazy. May to June is going to be nuts. So keep an eye on the site, obviously. But in terms of the most important targets in the class, I think on the offensive skill, man, you could go a bunch of different ways with this because they already have a great running back committed, really like Christian Rhodes. There's a part of me that wants to go one way with this. And I guess you could make the case for any of the 3 wide receivers that I have in my class prediction piece. But I am going to go with Arkansas commit DeQuane Prevost, because it was really impressive to me when I've seen him in action. There are a couple really high-profile recruiting battles SMU's in on. There's a couple of really high-profile flip targets SMU's in on. But Prevost is somebody out of Liberty Ilu in Texarkana who's been committed to the Razorbacks since November. But SMU has just been pushing and pushing. I think physically he really checks the boxes. He's got the kind of the Roderick Daniels look to him in terms of what his body type is. He's a really, really impressive young man. From what I've understood, he would fit in really well at SMU. And if you can flip him away from the Razorbacks, that's a plus as well. So I'm going to circle him. I just think SMU kind of evaluating the slot position and kind of their gadget position as a whole, I would say that they really need to find a way to upgrade it just a touch. And that means in the long-term plan, because, Dalen Singleton has a slot body. There's no doubt about that. But if he has that speed to really be a lead on the outside and force defenses to really kind of pay attention to him on the outside. Maybe he doesn't have the wiggle to necessarily get back into the slot, and SMU can do some different things. Prevo, I think, has the wiggle to be in the slot and to be a really, really good slot player in SMU's offense and end up being, a player similar to Roderick Daniels. I mean, just some of the stuff, if you're watching on our YouTube channel, that you see him do, he's got really good vision. I think he does a good job of understanding where the open field is as you're watching, and I just think he's smooth. So you can't go wrong with any of the wide receivers that I have in my class prediction piece. I mean, from a PR standpoint, from a just overall, player, you can't go wrong. So it's a good problem to have, me trying to figure out which one to pick, but I only picked one. So he's a must get for me. I think they've also done a good job of investing like time into him. So if you're SMU, you would like to see yourself come away with him. And then on the offensive line, I would say, man, must get. I think Drew Evers. I just think the Flower Mound offensive lineman who comes from a football family. His brother Nick was a quarterback or is a quarterback at UConn, and he's been on campus a bunch. He's well thought of. He's a top 150 prospect. SMU's recruiting him. They're battling OU. They're battling A&M. They're battling a number of programs. Ohio State just had him on campus. Michigan, I think Michigan, I'm pretty sure Michigan. So there's a who's who involved here. He's a local kid. He's a 4-star. I think I have a picture from SMU spring game a couple years ago, and Drew was still a freshman. So this is now, and this is funny because Chad Morris kind of always talked about building these like recruiting relationships, and then he never ended up seeing, necessarily the light of day with it because it wasn't ended up being at SMU long enough. But this is where, when you have a staff and a head coach that has been there and been there for a minute, this is where you can maybe win out. Like right now, I don't have SMU winning out on a Zayden Crimpen, which, look, I mean, just we'll see what happens if they can kind of get back into that one a little bit more. Like, they're in it, but I just don't think they're going to. But Drew's done a really nice job of continuously coming through to see SMU, spending time with the coaching staff. His parents seem to really like it. And I mean, this is a guy that, if you're going to compete year in, year out with home developed talent, this is somebody that you need to get. Obviously, of course, as long as he ends up, panning out. But these are the type of players that you need to land. I mean, a 5-star here and there, maybe once every couple of years would be great, awesome at any position, but they're very, very hard to get. Like, when they're 5 stars, when you're in this time period, right? Like, Dramont Odoms had a great senior year, had already signed with SMU, and ends up being a 5-star on 24/7, a top 100 guy, top 50, I think, consensus. So like, you have to, remember that when it comes to recruitments. But Drew is somebody who has position versatility as well. I think he can play 4 of the 5 offensive line positions. He could probably play center too. He's smart enough. But I think when you look at developing the offensive line long term, Drew Evers is a must get. I mean, you could make the case for Pup Katoa as well, but which would be another big recruiting battle win. Noah Best would be another big recruiting battle win. But I go with Drew Evers. They've been recruiting him for forever, it seems like. So, yeah. All right. On the defensive line, this is one where I think long-term, I've got to go defensive tackle. So here's another piece to how I'm kind of deciding. Because like, Landon Barnes would be a huge splash. He's obviously risen up the ranks into it. I think he's a top 100 guy now for us, maybe on the fringe. But I look at the bandit position. I see DJ Warner there. I mean, he flashes so much in spring ball. I think he's your bandit for the next however many years after this season. What you need is you have to start hitting, and you have to start taking quantity too of interior defensive linemen. Like, I have 4 true interior guys in my class prediction piece. Will they end up getting all 4? I don't know. But I think they could if they played their cards right. The one guy that I'm going to say that I think they absolutely need to get now is I'm going to go with Darryl Campbell. And here's why. there are 4 stars, a pair of 4 stars in there. I think Daryl could end up being the best out of all of them. And he's really in terms of college football players, I think Daryl Campbell could end up being that guy for SMU, where he ends up being kind of a late round type of pick when his career is all said and done. He's now assembled a laundry list of official visits and programs that are after him. I think, let me see, off the top of my head, Vandy, Texas Tech, Houston, UNC, SMU. SMU gets the last official visit. I think he'll pop in for spring ball. This is a good one to keep an eye on if he ends up coming through to check out SMU as a whole. But he's already been here once this spring. But I would say you want to look at him and you see somebody who could end up being a really strong football player for you. He comes from a Texas high school. He's not somebody that, like Tiki Hala, is at a Bastrop, which is great, and Bastrop's starting to produce some talent. SMU is in great shape there. I don't necessarily know if he's a must get from the standpoint of, like, if you're battling Notre Dame and USC for a player, I mean, yes, you would like to see them win that, but I also just think Daryl Campbell can be that good. So I've got him as a must get type of player. So I guess what I'm saying is I think Daryl Campbell's a little bit better football player than Tiki Hala or even Jamie Winfield. So Jamie Winfield's in there. He's a guy that is super local that you would love to get. And I think they can get all 4 of these guys that are uncommitted or committed elsewhere in one case. But Daryl Campbell, you've got the tie with Katie Paytow as well with Alex Kilgore. You were on him early. Like, get this one across the finish line is where I'm at with him. So, gosh, I know I'm probably going on 15 minutes on this question alone, but there's a lot of angles to it, and I like to think about these things. And then skill position wise, on the back end, I would say my top guy to get is Carter Stewart, and it kind of is a little cheating on why, but if you get Carter Stewart, you could end up getting his brother, Chris Stewart, or you will most likely end up getting his brother, Chris Stewart, the Texas wide receiver committed, who's a 4-star prospect. Now, don't sleep on Carter. I think Carter could end up being the better player long-term, and he's kind of blown up as well. I don't know what he ended up running. I hope he is doing the Houston camp 2 weekends from now, so we'll get a chance to see how he runs, but he's got some size to him. I think he's a really, really good football player and could end up being a guy that outperforms his current ranking at least. So Carter Stewart, keep an eye on him, and we'll see kind of how he goes. But he would be my must get, and in part because if you get him, you get his brother as well. So 4 pretty good, players there overall. I think SMU can't go wrong with any of those guys. So we'll keep a close eye on that group, and all 4 are also in my current prediction piece. So that's always a good thing too. All right, back to the mailbag. Friend of the program, Pony Kai. I have 2 questions. Go back a couple months, and you commented here that if there was ever a time for SMU to, quote, go for it in the portal and front load NIL before true NIL, I know an oxymoron if there was ever one, kicks in and acquire enough talent to be certain SMU would be a top flight team, then that time is now. The last couple of pods, that SMU is going to look at everything for the spring portal. That doesn't mean they're going to flood the zone with money, but it suggests they might. I don't know if there was actually a question in there now that I think about it. Yeah, I don't know if the comment is leading to the question. Sorry, Kai. I don't think they're going to go for it kind of like I talked about. So, for example, like David Bailey is probably going to end up at Texas Tech. Talented edge rusher. He has 14.5 career sacks. He had 7 sacks last year, but he's probably going to get 7 figures from Texas Tech, which is wild. I love Joey McGuire. If Joey McGuire doesn't win this year, I got to believe he's out of there, which is also somewhat funny because you have general manager and James Blanchard, who's now making 7 figures as well. Yes, you have a lot of money at your disposal, but if you don't evaluate right and this team doesn't come together, I mean, like, I got to imagine heads will roll. So anyway, a little side there. But my point was SMU needs an out, at the time, SMU needs an outside receiver. They need somebody to be a dude. Have so-and-so say, all right, I've got a business. Let's make it the so-and-so wide receiver position. And I'm going to be responsible for that. And maybe it's something that comes down the road. You get like an SMU alum, who runs a successful local business, like a really strong business, who wants to grow his brand, wants to run commercials, do all those things. You can do that every year with a wide receiver. I just don't know if the time is now that they're going to do something like 7-figure deals in this portal window, but we'll see kind of what happens. So we'll keep an eye out. We'll see kind of what they do with the spring portal window. 2 is Kevin working with a private quarterback coach this offseason or any private data analytics performance companies. I don't know about the analytics performance companies, but I actually did see him working out with a private quarterback coach after practice today. So there we go. SMU 1523 with Dion and Fran Brown, Colorado Syracuse spring game talk going on, which has been denied since. Do you think Rhett and company would be for or against practicing and scrimmaging against another FBS program? If yes, who do you think would be an ideal program to partner up with? In the current portal era, I would say no. Like, I don't think Rhett and the staff really necessarily want to do spring games, whatever between getting hurt, players being poached, whatever. But let's say you had assurances that contracts are contracts and guys are in, then I think they would be for it. I think so. They like to be competitive. The ideal program, I would probably say Arkansas. I know that might sound maybe a little silly, but I mean, you could flip-flop it between, SMU's campus and playing in Little Rock or, in Fayetteville. It's regional. The other one would be playing La Tech. I mean, they wouldn't be like sexy matchups, or I would say that obviously La Tech wouldn't be a sexy matchup, but like an Arkansas would be, solid and you not have to travel. I can't really think of anyone else as far as like, flying coast to coast like Colorado and Syracuse are talking about. But that's a good question. I would just say keep it regional, maybe even Oklahoma State. Oklahoma, I think challenging yourself would be fun, like for SMU. And they could probably beat Arkansas. What Oklahoma State put together last year, they'd probably beat Oklahoma State. Oklahoma, they'd be competitive. Be a good regional thing. You can maybe play it up in recruiting or something. All right. Before we get to our next question, I do want to remind you guys that we are also presented by our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. Get $500 off by mentioning On the Pony Express. You can see, if you're watching on YouTube, fresh video here, drone footage of Alex Carpenter and his team, some of his best work doing an entire backyard, custom pavers, really good, backyard chipping and putting area that they just completely did recently. It really came out nicely. If the homeowner would have liked to put a pool back there, that would have been the final piece to make this backyard truly a dream come true. But wow, what a spread. What a project from our friends at AKM Turf and Greens. Check them out, akmturfandgreens.com, and get $500 off your project by mentioning On the Pony Express. All right. CP2 Verdad Poder asks, Damon Evans talked a lot about engaging the Dallas corporate base. Couple questions here. Do you see a stadium naming rights in the future? I don't. I just don't think they're going to go that far, at least right now. What other forms of corporate sponsorships does he go after? I think you're going to see jerseys. I think or the jersey patches. I think you're going to see maybe like, you could go as far as doing like a helmet, back of the helmet type of sponsorship if you really want to go that far. More on-field sprayed on ads. one question I have, and it's not a complaint as much as it is, I just don't understand why they don't have ribbon banners like almost all the way around just to have extra available signage. But yeah, I think too, I mean, the amount of money that is poured in from corporate sponsorships has also gone up substantially with the ACC. So with like the ACC SMU being in it. So that is worth noting that will continue to go up. But, there's maybe some other things that they could do. Personally, this would be not necessarily bad for me because I don't know. I just don't know, how it would go or whatever. But if SMU did a podcast, they could sell that stuff as well. It might not be that much, but they could. 2, is present athletic department staff sufficient for Damon's goals, or will he start overhauling a little and bringing in his own people? I don't think that's an either or as much as it is if you're a athletic department leader, you're going to want to have some of your own people in. So I think that's kind of natural. I mean, he told me that he plans to get to know everybody and, learn about everybody and then see kind of where they go from there. Who knows kind of what all that means, but I expect some changes just because when you go through something like this, same with the president, that's what happens. Prediction for starting O-line left to right by week 3. So I would argue that the question should be for week 4, I guess, because you have, in theory, kind of you have East Texas A&M, then you have Baylor, then you have Missouri State, and then you have TCU. So the Missouri State, they should look good or whatever, but I would say I would guess it's going to be Bird, Parr, Addison Nichols, probably Nate Anderson, maybe Josh Bates, maybe Alex Woods. I mean, there's a bunch of possibilities at right guard. And then PJ Williams, who looks like an absolute stud. So that's my prediction. And if that doesn't happen, then I would say Jermod Odoms is probably your left tackle. I mean, if Bird gets burned by Baylor, I mean, you could throw Jermod out there and see, but that's very early for him too. Smarter but wiser, on this fall schedule, which home game should concern us the most? I got to say probably Baylor, I guess. I mean, I just am not sold on Carson Beck, so maybe that's me. Louisville, new quarterback, just not necessarily sold on Miller Moss. We'll see. They're tough. They're tough out. But I guess I would just say Baylor. I think that's a pretty safe answer. Road game, same question. That concerns. It's Clemson. I mean, that's huge game and against a really, really quality opponent. When it all shakes out, who's the second string quarterback? I think Keldrick Luster. I think the goal would be to redshirt Ty Hawkins and do that. So I think Keldrick Luster is your second string quarterback. I think that's pretty safe to say. Flock of Seagulls. This is kind of a running request more than a one-time question, but I'd like to hear as much about the implementation of a 12 personnel package on offense as possible. I'm just hoping it is getting a lot of attention and that it is leveraging motion to create a certain tight end off the line and in space to create mismatches. So right now, it's not the time for me to talk about that because RJ Maryland's been hurt. Matthew Hibner got nicked up. So not really the time right now. They're running a lot of wide receiver sets, kind of wide open a little bit. But yeah, they absolutely want to do that. I mean, they want to do 13. I mean, I think you're going to see RJ Maryland in the slot a little bit. Matthew Hibner as an ed line, Stone Eby as an H-back, and then whatever running backs back there. I mean, they really like their tight end room when it's healthy. So there's a lot of different things they can do there. Kurt SMU06 asks, which slot receiver is separating themselves, if any? So I was actually just talking with somebody about this today. Randy Reese got hurt. He's back, but I honestly, truthfully, I haven't seen him like really take the reins on that position and step up at a good enough level to feel really good about it overall. So I would say Jackson Lavender is probably been I know he's the one getting the most run with the ones, but we'll see kind of how all that goes overall at that position. So I mean, slot's kind of a. I wonder if they end up going like Jalen Cooper or Link Rhodes or kind of doing some different things with slot and getting bigger. And also, I know RJ Maryland's going to be moved around a ton, so I think I don't want to say scheme changes, but I think with the pieces that they have, I think they're going to do some different things from a look and kind of just how they approach it overall this coming fall. So that'll be something to watch. All right, I do want to remind you guys, we're also presented by our friends at Status Jet. I'm rocking the hoodie right now, which is a little bit tough to see on the pod today, but really enjoying planning out our 2025 big trips with David Henry. And so you should give them a call about your options for the 2025 football season. Mention on the Pony Express, get a discount on a round trip flight. Start your planning now. I think everybody realized after 24 that it's a heck of a time to be on the road with the Mustangs. So make sure you do it with our friends at Status Jet. Again, get a discount by going to statusjet.com and reaching out to them and mentioning on the Pony Express or our code PonyUpACC. All right, do want to continue on Pony Reb 95, 2018 Mustang. Excluding the guys that went to the combine, if you could pick one guy from last year to still be on the team, who do you want? I guess Jared Harrison Hunt or Justin Osborne. Like if you have Justin Osborne, I think your line's really good again, because I do think SMU ran the football really well and just got hit with a couple of elite pass rushers. So, yeah, I would. Excluding the guys that went to the combine. Yeah, Justin Osborne or Kobe Wilson. I mean, Kobe was awesome. I mean, there's so many. I guess the one guy is probably Tank Booker. Tank Booker. Yeah, that would help a lot. So let's go with Tank. Pony Reb 95, if I missed your response to a previous question a couple weeks ago, my apologies in advance. However, how would you compare this team's size, speed, athleticism, and leadership as compared to the 2024's team thus far through spring? I think leadership is, I mean, I would say people are going to say, they don't have a rah-rah, they don't have a Brandon Crosley or loud guys out there. I mean, this team just works. I mean, I like that defense. Like I watched a lot of the defense today, and they have such a workman-like attitude. There's no BS. There's no, I don't know. They're just super serious. And the same goes for the offense. Like it's just a different feel. So like just right there, maybe it is that culture really, really taking hold. And because if you've ever been to an SMU football practice under Rhett Lashley, they work really, really hard. They get after it. They're physical. I think we're seeing a lot of physicality this spring. It's been great. And, I think the leadership is more showing up in how they practice and how they get after it. I think that's where it's kind of showing up. I would say there are still some newcomers. Like last year, Deuce Harmon was adjusting, and it was very evident that he was adjusting. And I don't even want to say he was in the doghouse as much as it was such a culture shock. I think Eric Taylor's going through that. I think you're seeing that. Yeah, I mean, really with Eric Taylor, maybe a couple guys here and there that are coming along and learning, which happens every spring. In terms of size, they don't have the size on the defensive line that they had last year. And I think it's fairly apparent, like, not having Jonathan Jefferson out there stands out. Tank Booker, obviously not being on the defensive line, stands out. Jared Harrison Hunt was added in the summer, but stands out. So they've got some guys that are big and strong. Like Kevin Allen has improved his size. I thought Mike Johan, Sanjo Njigi's actually had a good spring, but the size of the defensive line is not what it was last year. I think the cornerback room has improved size overall. I think the safety unit looks pretty good. Speed wise, I think they've upgraded. I think, and like Moochie Dixon is the fastest player on this team on the offensive side of the ball for sure from last year. Dalen Singleton's going to have that level of speed. I still think they've upgraded the speed element on the offense. I just think Jalen Cooper, Dalen Singleton, Jordan Hudson's look good, Romello Brinson's look good, Chris Johnson Jr., Derek McFall, they're all really fast. And I think they've upgraded that. I think the size on the offensive line has been upgraded. I think it looks better too. Like Ja'Kai Clark was a little bit of a fire hydrant type of center. And Justin Osborne's a big guy, but so is Josh Bates. Addison Nichols is a big guy. So I'm really impressed with the size that's been added on the offensive side. I think the biggest question is the size of the defensive line. That's why they probably need one more in the portal at least. Hope that answers your question. CB2 back for more. Billy, it sounds to me like the Bagman is essentially coming back to college athletics under revenue sharing. There will be a salary cap, aka rev sharing, and then schools that want to circumvent the rules and caps will just pay people under the table like the old days. I like it out in the open better. Do I have this correct? Please say no. I think you do have it correct. I think we're going to see more under the radar or under the table deals. But the hope and the wild card of it is, will schools hold schools accountable for it? Because from what I understand, the penalties are expected to be worse for those who try and circumvent the rules. If that's the case, maybe we see that, slow it down a little bit. I mean, maybe, I don't know. But as long as there's opportunities to find a way to get an edge, schools are going to do it. And I think the initial out in the open was better for SMU because they did a really nice job of doing the grassroots and things like that. If it goes back to going under the table, I don't know. It might actually be a little bit better for SMU. So we'll see. Couchum, has anyone hinted at an actual strategy for engaging the Dallas corporate community? Is something frequently thrown out by fans and mentioned in relation to Evans, but what does it actually mean? Naming rights, NIL sponsorships, something else? What new thing are we going to be doing to attract this money to our small fan base that we have not previously, and or what opportunities do we present to businesses that they would not have already recognized and evaluated? Well, one, I mean, just last year, SMU went up in sponsorships 11% from what I was told. So we're seeing new money come in that is actually coming in. So there's proof in at least the last administration's, work with Learfield to then turn sponsorships into more money. Now, like I said a couple months ago, I think there's money being left on the table that's a part of the job of Damon Evans and Learfield to pull together and figure out what that looks like. And I mentioned some of them earlier: jersey patches, on-field sponsorships that are more prevalent, and all of that is on the table and all of that is being explored. But the thing about looking for an actual strategy, one, Damon Evans has only been introduced. His first day on the job is technically Monday. So, he wants to get out and he wants to meet with businesses. And I know that might not, I don't know if that's going to satisfy, fans or whatever, but that's how you do it. I mean, all of our great sponsors that we have on this podcast have either reached out to me and we've worked out something, or I've called them up and said, hey, I was thinking about you the other day and I think this is a great opportunity and you can get exposure and blah, blah, blah. I mean, that's how you sell sponsorships. You hit the pavement, you work hard at it, and that's the strategy. There's not a silver bullet, and different companies are going to be open to it versus others. And part of it, I genuinely believe, which makes me wonder why I'm so lucky, but part of it is just being likable too. So that seems like something Damon Evans knocked out of the park, at least with his opening press conference and what he wants to do. So naming rights, I think, are going to be explored. And SMU has done that from a private angle for a long, long time. The Armstrong Wellness Center, as Bill likes to call it, the Gary Weber Enzo complex. But how do you balance all of that with different naming rights opportunities with companies? That's the hard piece of that. And how do you create more branded areas for companies to activate? This is something that's probably going to hit the boulevard. We've seen different examples of pop-up tents that you can buy or whatever. I wonder when you're going to really see the next iteration of a truly branded experience hitting the boulevard at a high level that takes up, and this is something I've not talked with anyone about, but these are the type of ideas that should be explored, is how do you get a company like, Deep Ellum Brewery, or, take it a step up to a Miller Coors, and you get an entire space that's somewhere along the boulevard that is, a space where fans can go and have drinks or whatever. And then, it's a branded pop-up area that the company pays money for, and you got to pay for your drinks or whatever. But that an activation, those are all things that, should be being explored. So that is how you do it, though. There's really no, you can contract a consulting firm, which I don't know if SMU does or not, but they can put you in contact with a lot of that. That's what Learfield is. They consult, they do these deals. So it's something that Damon Evans is going to have to work on, and it's something that Learfield is going to have to work on to push it to the next level. And again, I know you want an actual strategy, but that's how you do it. There's really no other strategy to sponsorships and growing that, especially in the corporate community. You have to try to get meetings with local people. I've been looking at, breweries. We've kind of joked about Lakewood, Pony Pills or whatever. I just talked about Deep Ellum. Would love to partner with them. Haven't had the bandwidth to talk to them yet, but would love to have an official beer of the podcast one day. So that's how you do it, though. And I hope that answered the question, but you could probably say the only strategy would be, okay, we want to hit, and I don't know the list of SMU sponsors off the top of my head, but we want to hit, a huge financial firm and upgrade that piece, or make it be like a massive corporate sponsorship agreement where all the on-field placement for said financial company is X, and it's going to bring in $10 million a year. That would be nice. Those type of things, and set those goals of hitting the big corporate local, players, and then say, okay, all right, if that didn't necessarily work, if that wasn't up their alley, let's go a different direction here. So that could probably be the quote unquote only way that you see a strategy emerge. But the strategy for engaging the corporate community is cold calling. It's getting meetings. It's, hey, so-and-so, do you know so-and-so at this? Like, let's connect, let's go have coffee and lunch or whatever and make it happen. So that's how you do sponsorship. Similarly, we openly stated with Evans that we're all in on surviving the next round of realignment. Realignment has always been about ratings, aka fans, which I'm not saying you're wrong. The ratings are there. That's why Big Ten and SEC are kind of ruling the roost. But, SMU got in to the ACC without ratings. But though we can absolutely increase our fan base substantially over the next 5 years, it's hard to see us getting to the P2 level in that time frame. Your question is, as with our innovative pitch to the ACC, clearly we have or need to have an innovative strategy for the next round. What have you heard? Leveraging market, how, when streaming is the future, a strategy to get views that aren't necessarily the fans being the villains, strange new marketing, unfathomable rapid fan growth by new means, change the name, whatever, university, and capture the sports market of 1 billion Indians. Look, whatever, like we're going to get off into whatever the next iteration of college athletics actually looks like, which I have no idea. I have no idea what it looks like. But I would argue that the level of investment that SMU has put into its athletic department, the level of spending that they still want to do with their athletic department, and then coupled with some timely winning with football, truthfully, even football, football didn't necessarily win before they got into the ACC. So even then, you can't really point to winning having, seized the day. Or same with ratings. You could make the argument that college athletics, you have to be willing to spend. And you have to be willing to spend at an insanely high level and make yourself a key player, however that pans out. And schools like Alabama and Ohio State and Georgia and those places, they don't have to do anything different. SMU, Northwestern, Vandy's in the SEC, but those are the types of schools that whatever P2 looks like next time around, if that is what it is, if it's going to P2 and a breakaway or whatever, then SMU will go to P2 and once again give up money because it's going to see money on the other end of it. Like Maryland, the only thing Maryland did was they took out a loan because they couldn't afford it. SMU doesn't have to take out a loan. They have just people that are willing to write the checks. I think that ultimately is what it comes down to, is investment, being in a big market, check, Dallas, which is fertile recruiting grounds. Somebody is going to stick SMU in there if they just kind of keep the trajectory, keep the positioning of the whole athletic department right now where it is. I don't think P2 is, call it a little bit of trust in who just put together all of this for SMU, the group that did, but I think they've earned the right to get a little, trust that they'll get SMU there and keep SMU at this high level. If it is a P2, SMU is going to do whatever it needs to do to be in it, because down the line, that pays for itself. And it positions SMU among the top athletics departments in the country, no matter what. It just does. So, but I don't think there's anything that can really change SMU from a ratings deal unless they're just winning. They just consistently win. They play big games. They're, in College Game Day. That's kind of the next piece that they need to flip the switch on, and that's why it's good that they have expectations this year. But other than that, I think the strategy remains the same: is make yourself attractive. And if that means giving up a ton of money, it means giving up a ton of money, because it will pay off for SMU in the long run. SMU 11, with the case realignment. Gosh, these questions it's not directed at anyone, but God, I wish we were done with realignment for a minute. I would assume there's a two-pronged strategy: market ourselves to Power 2 in a way that we're on the right side of it, or work to bolster ACC as the third best power conference. On the first strategy, from your perspective, outside of raising capital and winning, what can SMU do in a short period of time to highlight itself? I think I answered this. Just truthfully, I think I addressed it in the first question. On the second strategy, is Phillips and others actively trying to persuade the Four Corners, Utah and Arizona State, to join the ACC? I have no idea. I was hoping to hear more rumors, especially after the AD at Utah saying they hated in the Big 12 and the ire of ASU has towards the Big 12 recently. Yeah, I think it's going to be more cloak and dagger this time around, because it's all the TV deals are coming to a head around each other. So I would imagine they're actively trying to have the opportunity to have any of those schools come join, but I don't think, I don't think you're going to hear much about it. Abe, got any vacations coming up? Yeah, we're going to Europe Easter weekend. We'll be back May 2nd, just time for a big recruiting weekend. So can't wait to see what happens then while I'm out of the country again. Pony Up MRG. Our future out of conference opponent list looks pretty light. What are you hearing on possible future matchups? SMU is a private school, first of all, so it's always going to look light because it takes reporters finding out public information acts. But you've got 25, 26 done, 27, 28 look light, but there's all I'm going to say is, guys, I mean, SMU's a private school. Some of these just aren't going to come to light as quickly as others are. So I've heard the rumors of a couple SEC teams. I saw the post on the board about LSU, but I haven't heard that. Auburn's been one that's been floated. So we'll kind of see. I think the scheduling model is right on. So get a throwaway game, get a reasonable FBS, and then get 2 good matchups. Phoenix asks, who's better at golf, you or Hayden? We'll find out. We're playing next week, actually. So, and then have I thought about an annual OTPE golf tournament to raise NIL funds? No offense. If we did a golf tournament, it would not be to raise NIL funds just because that's personally not my responsibility. But would be open to some sort of like collaboration kind of thing. But no, it's not. I would not do it to raise NIL funds because it's not my job to do that. But we would do it for having a good time and having everybody out together and maybe doing it for a good cause. So, but yes, we've looked at that for sure. Very interesting. When will we hear about plans fundraising for upgrades to Ford 25, 26 other? I like Bill Armstrong and David Miller have kind of said, once you renovate the kitchen and you need to do the rest of the house. So I would think it's a 2026 thing. They really do need to figure out what rev sharing and NIL looks like before they like announce that phase, but it is being worked on. C Nash, top 3 guys whose stocks have been rising so far in spring ball. Who has surprised you the most so far? I kind of answered the surprise one, but stocks who's been rising, I would say Trey Wilson, the Baylor transfer. He's looked really, really good. Really like what SMU got in Addison Nichols in center. I think he's been great. I would say Zakai Barker looks just unbelievable. I would say DJ Warner is probably one of the guys that surprised me as well because I just heard he was just pretty raw and just kind of, still learning and all that stuff. So I would say that those guys are among those who've been on the rise for sure. Beacon's Pony, what are the most interesting non-cash NIL deals you are seeing both at SMU or non-SMU? Honestly, I don't even know because I'm just kind of in my lane. So, I did hear of one for a basketball player that to land him, the family ended up getting $75K guaranteed to them for travel expenses because they didn't live near where the kid was going to end up going to school. So that was what pushed it over the finish line at $75,000 for travel. So congrats. How has nutrition, strength, and conditioning been? What are the main differences you are seeing between the last few years? Any notable adjustments? I haven't seen any differences since Grizz has gotten in. I know they did some more shoulder work after their first year here, right? When they had all those shoulders, they did some different things, kind of working on those. But the biggest thing is the Gary Weber end zone complex. I mean, multiple bigger cold tub, hot tub. They have so many things that they can use for training and rehab and prehab. I mean, it's unbelievable what's in there. I mean, we had Logan Parr, and I still need to post the video. Sorry, guys, but we had Logan Parr talk about a little bit of that on our special luncheon that we had with him and Zakai Barker and just how big of a deal it is. So that's the biggest thing is what they can get done in that facility. It's just incredible. Am I hearing of any potential changes to the game day Saturday experience? Some of the discussion last year around closing the boulevard during the game, get folks in seats. I haven't heard anything. I mean, I think it was pretty good last year. So I don't think they're going to change anything. I don't think they should change anything. I think people maybe know a little bit now to just get to your seats and enjoy it. So I don't think they need to really mess with it. I think now we're finally at a place where SMU's got a good situation going. So, yeah. Do I think SMU TCU will be a sellout? I'm going to say no. Just my opinion. I don't know why. It's TCU's kind of had pockets up in the stadium here and there of that one. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. I just don't see it. I just don't. Maybe it really might depend on how TCU's coming in. And if they lose at UNC, I mean, who knows what the crowd looks like. But I'm going to say no. Just like officially a sellout, I'm going to say no. Maybe some pockets and things like that. But all right, guys, we've gone on long enough. Please reach out to our friend Mark Villasana at NW Agencies, Northwest Insurance Agency, nwagencies.com. Give him a call or drop him an email, info@nwagencies.com. We appreciate all of our sponsors for supporting us, the whole crew, Rusty Taco, Roback, My Perfect Franchise, Thomas Auto Group, AKM Turf and Greens, everybody. And we appreciate you guys for listening to this mailbag edition. I hope it helps you get through the weekend. And we'll be back with plenty of coverage at ontheponyexpress.com. So make sure you tune in, and we will catch you guys then as we will be recapping another week of spring ball with Hayden Howerton and doing all of that. So appreciate all you guys for listening. Have a good one, everyone, and a great weekend.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.